We're back!
You're watching Alicyn's Wonderland, inside the world of animation and games.
What is up, guys? Welcome to season 3 of Alicyn's Wonderland. Keep it down in there. Crowd noise. You'll have to generate your own sound effects at home. My name is Alicyn. With me today for our very first episode is the one and only George Whittam. Now, hello. George is, what can we say about George that hasn't already been said before? He's one of the foremost experts on recording engineering for voice actors, and he's my own personal engineer. He helped build the studio that we are now in, and it's only apropos that George is our first guest. How you doing today,
space.
Thank
it's an
you.
amazing space. This is the studio that is referenced more by other voice actors when they're thinking about designing a home studio than any other studio.
Aw.
This is the one they think, that Alicyn, that one that they might even remember exactly who you are, but they saw that picture and they're like, wait, whose studio's? That one is amazing, and they always think of the studio. So this one is like. This one is the bar.
Well, it was really like such a good team effort, because I know I came to you with some ideas and you were able to make them a reality. And it's still a dream studio for me. I still look around this space and I'm so happy that we're here. Funnily enough, now I've renovated this little area so we could shoot the podcast here.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about this next phase. Season 3 is going to be all about one-on-one, in-person, still as before, but a little bit more intimacy. Also a little bit more flexibility for my schedule and the guests' schedule. We're so grateful to Real Voices for letting us shoot season 2 there. They're amazing. You should also check out their workshops if you're interested in voice acting. But we are in a more intimate space. It's just the two of us. But here, why don't I pour you a nice soothing cup of hot tea?
Look at that. Look at that. That thing is really cool.
This is like sound effects here as well.
This is ASMR now. We're getting into the ASMR category.
Should we take a sip at the same time?
There was no spit take.
You don't want the sound of like us accidentally snorting out hot tea. So, George, we have so much to discuss, and we can go in so many different directions. I found a fun fact about you that I did not know, which is you actually got your start in audio interning at the Howard Stern show.
No. I can't really claim that I was directly interning at Howard Stern's show, but I was interning at I was working at the station in Philly that carried Howard Stern on the air. And he would occasionally come into studio and they would do like wacky things like Baba Booey and Stuttering John boxing it out at the Trump Taj Mahal Hotel. And we would go down there and do a remote. So not much has changed. Yeah, not much. Yeah, we would do remotes and I would engineer the remote while our jock was there doing his personality thing, and we were using ISDN.
Wow.
And that is because of all those remotes and getting to intern at the station, and actually interned briefly, and then I got hired as an engineer pretty quickly. That gave me a huge amount of experience with ISDN.
Yeah.
And doing things like live, like it has to go. Like, it has to happen now. Not like a recording studio where you got the day, we're going to get the drum sound now, and we're going to work on the snare drum now. No, it's like, no, it's now. It has to happen now. Or you have 4 hours till air and that kind of stuff.
That's so fun.
And improvising, figuring out problem solving. The problem solving in the clutch thing, I think, is a big part of it. And that came from radio.
And so at what point in your life did you realize, okay, audio, this is my jam?
Yeah. Well, definitely way before that, but I didn't know about making a career of it until I was probably in college. Yeah, I was always dabbling with it, playing with tape recorders. My dad had a very technical background. Yeah, legit. I had a little Sony cassette recorder I used all the time. And my dad was involved in tech in terms of fixing sonar for submarines on a aircraft carrier.
Wow.
So like he was doing technical work as a teenager, literally in the Navy, So that always was in my blood. And then my dad also played trumpet. So those are two things that I immediately fell in his footsteps.
You play trumpet?
I do. I don't actively play trumpet. Like I'm not playing right now, for example.
You guys have a history. You go way back.
But I played trumpet from
Mr. T.
age of, I was in 3rd grade when I started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, but that all definitely came from my dad, the music and the tech. And so I always had to figure out a way to bring those two together.
And wow, so then I heard you kind of stumbled into audio recording for voice actors.
Definitely.
What did that trip look like?
Well, I mean, it was really thanks to radio because, and thanks specifically to an old friend of mine, Lane Massey. I love you, Lane. I haven't talked to you in so long. I need to catch up. But Lane was and still is an engineer for what is now WIP, 94 WIP Sports Radio in Philadelphia. Was 94 WYSP, the rock station.
Okay, you're getting into a lot of the technicalities here.
I know. This is what happens. How much time is on these cameras? I guess we're going to find out.
We're going to find out.
But yeah, and so I got to be in the radio world, and at the same time when I got involved with that through Lane, he was setting up a voiceover studio for Howard Parker, who is, become almost a legend of his own in terms of promo and trailers and movie and commercials. So anyway, he needed a studio. I went to his place in New York City where he had just moved. Lane and I installed a studio for him. I was really, literally interning. I was just following Lane and watching him. But flash forward 4 or 5 years from there, Howard ends up in Southern California. I end up in LA in 2004. Howard finds out I'm in LA and he's like, hey, can you help me with something in my home studio? And that's where it all started. It was just, I had gotten to know him. He knew I knew stuff about this home studio voiceover, but he just had faith that I could, solve problems for him. And that it's just started from him. I call Howard Client Zero.
Okay. Did he introduce you to other voice actors?
He introduced me to his management.
Okay.
And then Jason Mark's talent introduced me, and I did it 2 times. Are you guys keeping score as to how many times I've bumped into the mic?
We will now. Maybe we can get the editor to add like a little tally sheet on
I want to see a little number.
2 for George, 0 for Allie.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I should hold my cough
Hopefully they're
tea
not
and
counting my slurping. No.
And then, so thanks to that connection and working with Howard, who was with the top management, Jason started referring me to some of his clients who needed technical help. At that time, they were just getting ISDN. That's how long ago this was. Mm-hmm. They were just going, I need ISDN. And that's what kept me pretty busy for a while, was figuring out how to get up ISDN systems running for creatives.
So now that you're like one of the experts on setting up home studios for voice actors, who do you go to when you have an issue? When you don't know something?
That's a great question. Like a lot of folks, I definitely crowdsource information. I actually Google sometimes. Mm-hmm. Less Googling now. I have a array of like forums and groups where I know the voices in those spaces are people that I can kind of trust. Mm. I know I'm going to get pretty accurate information, which is a big deal. If you just ask questions in random groups that are called voiceover, you're going to get a crazy variety of accurate and inaccurate and personal answers that aren't related.
As they say at my son's school, you get what you get and you don't get upset.
Right. Yeah. So that's
put the cord where?
Yeah, that's what happens. But I mean, I started in LA as a film production mixer. I was actually doing boom operating and recording on film sets. And that was an absolute crash course. I had no background in that at all. Why I thought moving to Hollywood, I would just plunge into a whole new industry and learn it just like that, I have no idea what I was thinking. But I thought, I don't know anybody in the music business here, because I also have a music recording background. Mm-hmm. But it seems like through this thing called Usenet, do you remember rec.audio.something? There were like these servers.
Is that a Reddit?
It's like a Reddit before Reddit.
Okay.
I'm really dating myself now. But I found these sources of forums that taught me specific skills. And those forums, I started realizing, had people who were true experts in their field. They wrote books. I started paying attention to the people who are actually publishing books and really authorities on the subject. And then just once you find people, if they're willing to answer your questions, then you start to find mentors. And I have several people I consider mentors in acoustics that really know acoustics on another level, way beyond my understanding. And so it's a collection of a lot of different sources, and just my colleagues in this business. And there are a bunch like that. Some of them I even have working with me, like Robert Marshall from Source Elements, Tim Friedlander from Soundbox, Andrew Feliciano, who runs Voice Tracks. Yeah. All of them are studio owners in their own right. They've always been in this business for 20 plus years. So between us, if we can't solve it, it seems like it shouldn't be solved at that point, because the amount of knowledge. Dan Leonard, my co-host on VOBS, also years of broadcast and audio experience. So we have this amazing brain trust of people.
I think you guys need a superhero name for your brain trust.
Kind of like a Wonder Twins, not Wonder Twins, but like this is where I don't
Audio Nerds Unite!
Audio Nerds Unite.
Yeah.
Like something with like lots of streaks and moving graphics. Yes. Yeah, no, it's definitely like a lot of information comes from a lot of directions. And I often joke I've forgotten more about this stuff than I know, because your brain only holds so much, and it starts to leak out the other side.
You know what's so interesting is I just finished this 5-week writing course with a guy named David Perel. And one of the first things he starts you with is this idea of building a second brain. He talks about it. I believe there's somebody else that talks about it, which is making sure that you're taking really detailed notes. You're in Evernote, he recommends. And
I
used to use Evernote. I quit when they raised the price in 2018, so I have this interesting little time capsule from 2011 to 2018.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
All my old notes were there, and so I'm back on Evernote.
Yeah.
But there's also an app called Readwise, so you can take your Kindle, everything you read on Kindle, and import your notes directly there. So if you go years later to write about a topic, the idea is that you've already done the research.
That's really smart.
So it's very cool.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm definitely all about
I kind of want to make a knowledge base. That's what I call it.
Tell me more about that.
That's the tech nerd speak version of it. But when you go to a website and you search for an answer, and when you go into a website and what you really want is to just immediately talk to somebody, but instead they start giving you answers.
Well, yeah, they have the bot.
Yeah.
You're like,
that's drawing information from a knowledge base.
How can I help you today?
Yeah. And so I eventually want to have a knowledge base of everything I've learned and my colleagues have learned, so that I have that for myself. Because I can't remember the right answers to everything out there. It's impossible.
No.
So that's exactly what has to happen.
That sounds like a lot of work, though.
It is a lot of work.
Are you going to do it, or?
It's on the roadmap. Yeah.
2023?
Yeah, maybe 2023, yeah. There's a lot of ideas for 2023. Thank you. Cheers.
Let's talk more about your business and the future of your business. I know you're getting ready to launch a new website. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Hope that wasn't a surprise.
No. I've already put out the beta of it. It's just so that people can bang, as we like to say, beat on it, bang on it, and find anything that's wrong with it. We did a lot of testing in advance, but it was created in partnership by the team at skillshub.life.
Oh, wow. Jennifer Hale.
Jennifer Hale.
Yeah, I'm a partner, actually.
She is, man, what a dynamo.
Yeah, Jennifer's amazing.
When I was in the depths of the frustration of development of a website, she came to me out of the blue and said, not even knowing what I was going through, she was like, look at this thing I made. And half of me was like, this is so freaking cool, and wow. And half of me was like, oh my God. She's already built this thing that I wanted. It's essentially what I wanted to build. So anyway, 2 years later, they built my entire website. It's entirely built on their platform. You know, so it's going to be my site and my branding and everything, but the under the hood thing, the behind the scenes, the back door is all Skills Hub.
Now, Jennifer's a voice actor, so she didn't actually build the site herself, right?
No, but she has an amazing team because her sister is an incredible she has a business mind, business brain, and then she knew Bill, the developer, and so the three of them are partnered. And so I've worked mostly with Bill, but man, what a great team. So yeah, I'm excited. We're still in testing, hopefully December.
Skillshub.life, check it out. I'll drop it in the comments.
Yeah, I mean, in a quick nutshell for them, it's just a place to get very short notice, scheduled, prearranged coaching and mentoring that you can. It's basically like tech support for talent. Mm-hmm. It's like the coaching side of tech support.
The Uber of voice coaching.
Yeah. You could say it that way. Yeah.
They also have. They're also working on a segment for developers, and we'll have to get Jen back on this year.
Oh yeah, this is a whole thing. They're going to have different verticals, where they can be. So anyway, that's happening, and so
your website. Tell us a little bit more about what services your website will offer.
Yeah. Well, the site's currently up in its old form, but it's still working, and at georgethe.tech, and it's an amalgamation of free information, resources, content, videos that I've put out over the years. It's sort of one place to go and browse and look through. There's a tremendous amount of content and free information. There is a search box. Use it. At the top right of my website, type in search strings and you can find all kinds of stuff. There's blogs. But the key thing, obviously, is it's a place where you can book time with me or any of our team to get tech support. And you can also get processing presets, or you can hire me to design a studio.
That's what you did for me first in my old studio.
Yeah.
You did some stacks.
Yeah.
Tell our listeners what a stack is.
So a stack is a jargon. It's Twisted Wave's way of describing a sound processing preset that includes other processing tools. So the mental picture is it's a stack of equipment that's all virtual. And I set it all up for you, set the knobs, the positions of all the settings, everything. And then it's very easy to then import that setting into your system. Mm-hmm. And that's a stack. Pretty much all of the softwares that we like to use have their own version of this. Audacity has macros, Audition has racks, Reaper has effects chains, Pro Tools has templates. There's all these different ways to do this. And I can support pretty much all the major software and create these presets based on your voice, your microphone, your room acoustics, and the genre. Because the processing's different for a trailer versus
I had one I still have one for animation, which helps kind of all the levels come up. Sometimes you're very quiet and then you're very loud. It
helps control the crazy dynamic range.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then promo, kind of usually a little closer to the microphone.
Yeah,
so
kind of bigger than life.
A little bigger than life. And then a commercial, which is just sort of cleaned up.
Clean, but it's a very raw, nowadays especially.
Raw. I use that one the most, even on everything now, because they often want it to sound raw. Unprocessed.
Yes.
They're testing your home studio.
They really are now.
Audition.
Oh man, since the pandemic, that's gotten much more of a thing now. So now the voice actor's stress is like, they keep telling me they want it raw, but I have all this rumble. And I'm like, well, raw means they want it to sound like you did nothing at all to the audio, but okay, you can cheat a little bit and put a little high-pass filter and get rid of the rumbly stuff in your audio. No one's going to get upset with you if you do that, So
they're not going to know.
And they're not going to know. Not if it's set up correctly, they're not going to know. So
they're going to know. They're not going to know.
Exactly. Someone's going to be mad at me for saying that, but trust me, the voice actor's job is to fit into a machine and make that machine run well. And sometimes you, as the voice actor, have to know better than them because you may have 20 years of experience and the person you're working with might have 3.
But you're like the heart of the machine, there to evoke the feelings so that the machine is just all mechanical.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, we don't need to go there, but I know there's a lot of concern about things becoming more automated, and that the acting will always be the acting.
Who do you think is the foremost? Who do you think are really some of the experts on AI voices right now?
Well, I don't really know because it's really only become a big topic of discussion in the voiceover diaspora, kind of like this year. I do know that. I mean, if I'm going to say one name, the one name that always comes to mind is Bev Standing, because she was sort of accidentally dragged into that world, and she literally had to basically go to a major company and say, "Hey, you stole my voice." So that was a big thing, and now she's kind of embracing it, and she's kind of become a lot more knowledgeable and really. Yeah. So I think it's not about the technology of how it works, but the legalities, getting rights to your voice. I think she probably knows more than almost anybody, because she's had to go through that whole litigation or settling out of court or whatever it is she went through with Rob Sigmund-Paglia to help navigate that. So she's probably one of the most knowledgeable, just having had to live it herself. So,
yeah. What other changes have you seen in the voiceover world over the past decade?
Well, let's see. Yeah, so over the past decade, it's definitely like becoming the voice actor has to be more self-sufficient. You're being asked to do far more tasks than would have been traditionally, especially in a traditional studio sense where
they don't want you touching the mic.
No, they don't want you doing anything. They want you to be on time, happy, be great in the studio, nail it faster than expected, and be able to hang in there for 2 or 4 hours, depending on the current rulings in the union. We're going to call the client. Yeah, and then go home. That's what they traditionally want. Instead, I mean, here in LA, actors that are especially doing animation are still working this way. But by and large, it's definitely become like you have to know the entire process. You're not just an actor now. You're a producer. You're an engineer. You're an editor. You're doing all these things, and you're also having to multitask in ways you didn't have to before. And I'm a big, I hate the concept of multitasking for a creative talent. If you have to be, and I mean to be meta about it, I see you looking at this little thing to make sure it's working, because you just want to know that it's working. But if you have to look at a meter, for that split second, you're not in it.
Present.
Yeah. Right? And what ticks me off is that productions now are expecting more and more and more of the actor to be wearing those hats. And they feel like, well, we all multitask. Why shouldn't you? Like, why shouldn't you be able to keep an eye on your levels and change pages in your script and keep a conversation going with the client on Zoom and keep all this stuff running seamlessly? It's kind of like the quintessential I can do it all kind of thing. But when you do it all, you drop, something suffers. You can't do it all. And that's I'm such a big proponent of the actor being able to like forget about the tech when they're actually acting, right? And that's super hard. I mean, your studio, you're at a control center. You've got double mics, the computer, everything's in front of you. What do you do with all this stuff in front of you? What do you do to forget that it's there? Do you ever forget that it's there?
Well, I think one advice I might give to somebody who is building their own studio would be to have your microphone. I like having the computer right there because I can just, but it's easy to get distracted by the computer. So I have to be very diligent with that. Totally. But I mean, everything is just kind of set up. Once I set the levels,
but you're not looking at your main screen. You're looking at an iPad over here, and that's where your script is.
Yes, my script is not on. And the iPad gives me the flexibility to have the Apple Pen. Yes, I do a lot of marking up. Yeah, I highlight. I don't know why. It's just an old habit. I like to highlight my lines and do all my script breakdown on the iPad. That way, when we started to move away from digital, and even the early phases of the iPad where you were just like highlighting with your
just using your finger. It's like paint by number, finger painting on your screen,
Just a straight line. That was tough because you'd still need a piece of paper to kind of like organize your thoughts and everything when you're doing your prep.
But you embraced technology pretty early. You're more technical. You embrace the tech. Like we're doing this. We have three iPhone, iOS devices. A lot of stuff going on, But
I just realized this is set to like a different Kelvin than.
they're very similar.
It's
It's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine.
You got daylight out there. You got warm
daylight.
lights. Don't worry about it.
I'm not worried
gonna look
about it.
great.
I mean, and that's just the great thing is the audience, many of our audience has been with us since this was an IGTV show.
Right. Yeah, where there's one head up here, one down
There's one
here.
head and one there. So this is light years
It's
better.
really evolved,
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I know we're kind of going on a tangent, but yeah, I just want the technology to be as little of a distraction as possible.
100%.
And Bo Weaver, years ago, he still to this day, he goes into a booth, he reads the script, he walks out of the booth, and he edits the recording. Always. Like, there's no computer. He has an iPad for timing and stuff, but that's it,
Yeah, I kind of think that's essential. I mean, I think it's a good habit. The other thing is taking space between when you record and when you edit so that you're not trying to then direct yourself with the actor's mindset. It's two different things. I think it was Seinfeld that said treat yourself like a baby when you're writing and treat yourself really bad when you're editing. Like just be really rough on yourself when you're editing.
Yeah. If you're doing
Kind of
those two
similar.
things and switching back and forth rapidly, I can imagine it would kind of send you in a bit of a spiral or a feedback loop.
Trying to do it right as opposed to being connected
Yeah.
to the material.
So
But what do you think of my new DJI microphones?
yeah,
these
things
wireless
are
labs.
these things made me very excited when I saw them.
Can we talk about these for a second?
Okay, let's talk about them. And you bought them with your own money. Let's be
TikTok.
clear about this. This is not a
I
sponsorship.
know, but DJI, if you want to send me anything,
Hey.
I'll take it.
Boom.
I'll take it.
These are fantastic because they're self-contained. You can plug in another lav mic if you don't want to have this big thing on you, but the internal mic's great.
I think it's a problem.
They're wireless, and so they're sending their audio to one camera, which has a little transmitter, a receiver, which shows that there's a signal on both mics. It shows there's level.
Maybe we can do a cut in. Maybe the editor can do a cut in.
Yeah, we can
here.
cut in, and there's also a record indicator of showing both mics are recording. Yeah, they're recording. They're actually recording internally. So if the wireless gets interfered with or something happens on the phone side.
Which is probably unlikely.
It's unlikely, but
anything's
it used to be way more of a problem. Like with iPhone recording stuff, it was so flaky. But this thing is recording internally. So you have a backup of everything, And even in the absolute worst case, if one of our mics wasn't working, we're sitting right across from each other. We could use a little leveling and we could probably get decent audio from either mic, But yeah, amazing tech. They charge inside the case. They automatically connect to the receiver. They automatically start recording when you take them out of the case. This is really well thought out.
Very
tech.
neat.
Yeah.
Very
Good
cool.
choice.
So we'll see. I'm recording in a studio, and I've taken a look at a lot of different podcasting setups, which they usually, first of all, buying another microphone seems a little silly when I already have two microphones, but to unhook them from where they live and move them every single time, I'm looking for a setup that's super easy.
Yeah.
So hopefully the two iPhones and one iPad setup and these lights is going to be the solution we need.
Well,
and
you're
it's
seeing
kind of
it now,
interesting.
folks.
We're taking
Let
a
us
peek
know.
behind the curtain.
Totally.
Let us know. Weigh in the comments. Compared to last season, what do you think? Does it look equally good, a little worse, a little better?
Yeah, how's the sound?
How's the sound?
We care about the sound.
Yeah, we do.
It's an aesthetic choice. I've talked a lot about this with other media producers. Whether you go lav mic like this, or whether you have the big podcaster mic right in front of your face.
Also cool. Like I would do that if I had two free mics, but then again, we're not on the table.
I could go crazy with it. Would look like a cyborg in here. I would have arms mounted to the walls with everything mounted on arms, and it would be crazy in here if you gave me a day in here. It would look crazy. But this is a great way to get still really clean audio, and without the bulky mics.
Yes, this is certainly a portion of our listeners are not watching. They are just straight up listening. Because that is a really great way to maximize your time. You can listen when you're jogging.
I'm a huge podcast fan. Listen to a lot of podcasts.
What are some of your favorite podcasts?
I like, on the geeky techie side, I listen to a lot of the Twit This Week in Tech podcasts. There's a fellow named Leo Laporte who produces those. He's been doing that for 20 plus years. I've gone and see his studio actually in Petaluma, California. I've seen how he does it. I've met him. He's definitely kind of like a mentor to me actually. And that's so I listen to a lot of their content. I really enjoy some of the music interview podcasts that are out there. I like to consume some of the voiceover content that's out there. You know, after a while, you're like, oh, another interview with that person, another interview with that person. Okay, okay. But
what are some of your favorite VO podcasts?
Oh, you really put me on the spot.
You can just say this
You're really
one.
putting me on the spot. Well, yeah. That goes without saying.
This one.
Goes without saying.
Although we are not a voiceover specific, you happen to be as VO as we go.
Right, right. Yeah, this is an acting podcast. This is about the actor.
This is actually animation and video games. So
yeah.
Creators and writers and
all sides of the sides of the business. Yeah, it's not just actors.
And I would like also to be adding content creators for season 3. So I'm excited.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a content creator too, right? I mean, I'm marketing my business. I'm teaching classes and webinars. I'm supporting that. I'm just now getting the very slow ball rolling on TikTok finally. Finally have a George the Tech Bot.
Okay,
TikTok.
you'll have to send us your link so we can include it in the show
You
notes.
know, so I have that going on. I'm trying to make fun content there. So, you know, I do my own podcast content. I'm on another show called the Pro Audio Suite. That's a traditional podcast, if you want to call it that, because there's no video.
The one with Dan Leonard?
The one with Dan's VOBS, the voiceover body shop. That's a video show that we then put on audio. But the Pro Audio Suite is purely audio.
Okay.
With zero video. In fact, we don't even see each other when we're recording it. We just hear each other.
And who's your co-host?
And that one's 3 people. That one's Andrew Peters, who's in the Melbourne, Australia area.
Oh, wow.
Robbo Robertson, who's really the producer and engineer that runs the show. He's in Sydney, Australia. And then Robert Marshall, who's the co-founder of Source Elements. He's the other guy.
Wow.
So it's the 4 of us.
Of you.
Yeah.
And do you just talk
shop? And then we talk shop. We have interviews. We've had up to 5 or 6, maybe 6 or 7 people on at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
It's a lot. It's a lot to manage. And they put a lot of hours into editing it and making it
like
sound
you guys
tight.
Have it under control with that team, though.
Well, you'd be surprised how much time we spend sometimes teching out issues on the show of producing our own show. So it just, that's a long story.
Wow.
But those are the ones that I'm spending the most time on, and everything else for me is just it's just marketing and networking and putting out content, and then my webinars. When I do a webinar, that to me feels like I'm doing a show. Because we want it to flow, we want it to be a complete product, and when it's over, we want it to be done. No post. We do a little bit of trimming, but I don't want to have to edit it down, make changes. Do you
do it live?
It's live. It's live. Some would call it a workshop, but it's a webinar. It's live on Zoom, and then it gets recorded, and then it gets put up as a video on demand. So you can do an online rental and then watch the content. So I'm building this library of video on demand, because I'm trying to get away from everything I do has to be a one-on-one with George. There's so much stuff that I know that could be available to people in this video on demand format. Yeah. So that's the eventual goal, is to get as pretty much everything I know into a video.
Amazing.
That's the goal.
And that'll all be available through your website? Yeah.
It's through Vimeo, but it comes through my site, and it's everything I teach live goes there as a rental, and there's also a lot of stuff I don't teach live that I just produce at home. There's screen recordings of the software I'm teaching, and then I voice over them or live teach them and then make videos, training videos essentially.
Interesting. So I'm sure one of the questions you get asked the most is, I want to set up a home studio. What do you recommend? I know that's kind of a loaded question, and you probably don't have the bandwidth to be able to do one-on-ones with everybody. So What advice would you give for somebody that was looking to set up their very first or, broadcast quality?
The first serious home studio.
First serious home studio.
Yeah, the first serious home studio. Well, even if it's a serious home studio, it still can be a closet, right? It doesn't have to be some expensive isolation booth, but you do want to have, ideally, somewhere that is quiet a lot of the time. We know it's not going to be quiet 100% of the time, right? But as long as you can get enough quiet in the day where you can record and work uninterrupted for long stretches of time, especially if you're doing audiobooks, you need a lot of time. That's your main number one goal. So if you're starting out in a city or urban location with roommates, in a multi-story building, it's going to be exceedingly difficult to get the ball rolling. It's going to be very hard because you're going to be always fighting for quiet and focused time, right? So that's your biggest enemy is noise, right? And you got to find that place you can work. Once you've found somewhere that you can record long enough without interruption, the gear is exceedingly inexpensive compared to where it used to be. I don't recommend a USB mic, although certainly you can produce professional quality with them. I'm not worried about the quality. It's just the perception of not having a serious studio when you're using a USB mic, which is a little bit misplaced, but I kind of get it. It's also, I just did a TikTok a little recently saying the problem with a USB mic is when they say, if you're being directed live or on something and they say, hey, can you turn up the gain a little bit? What they hear is like this. They hear you touching the microphone. Okay. Because you have to adjust the gain on the, not really a good look if you're literally fumbling with your mic to turn up the gain, right? So that's another reason. So you just want a good, I like brands like Rode, Audio-Technica, MXL makes some good affordable mics. All of them under $300 microphones that sound fantastic. And then plugged into a basic audio interface, like the big ones that everybody probably knows about, like the Scarlett made by Focusrite. Very popular, works great, easy to use. You used one for years. Yeah, you used one for years. Works fantastic. You don't need any extraneous outboard gear, preamps and compressors. And
we used to have Avalon 747 and we decided it burned out.
We could really simplify things. And again, everything for me is about simplifying the workflow for the actor because, as I said before, multitasking is challenging.
In terms of the acoustic space, what about something like a studio bricks or a booth that's not portable but that you build on your own? Do you recommend things like that?
So everything I was talking about, it was about the sound, keeping noise out. Yeah. But acoustics is another challenge, right? And that's making it not sound like you're in a box. A lot of people's closets, especially if it's a walk-in closet where you have clothing on at least 2 walls, are ideal because you now have this huge, deep, sound-absorbing layer of stuff in there. And acoustically, it's amazing. And what happens is people will record in those for a couple of years. They'll buy a studio bricks or a whisper room, and then the sound will actually become worse because they don't have enough acoustical treatment in them. So tuning these small spaces to sound good is a little bit of a black art. And that's something I work really hard.
It's magical.
Yes, it's a little bit of a black art. Even the acoustician
George
guys.
Whittam, the Wizard of Sound.
Even the acoustician guys are like, oh, well, it's too small. You got to make it bigger. And I'm like, well, then, it's not a TARDIS from Doctor Who. It is what it is. You walk in and it's a little closet. How are we going to make it sound good? So, that's the tricky part. But it's not overly expensive. I mean, I think realistically, if you already own a computer, I think most of you do, then probably $500 in actual equipment, and then another $500 plus on the acoustic treatment, and then another $500 to pay me to help you set it all up. Divide your money up between gear, acoustics, and tech help training, and it will save you tons of money in the long run.
And hope that you get a job soon that will cover that because I think with voice acting it's always an investment.
Yeah, just don't overinvest unless you're just very lucky and you have this is your second career. You've saved a lot of money, but you got to put aside money more money aside for the human resource, the teachers, coaches, tech people. You need to spend more money on that than you do on the gear. If you blow it all on the tech and the gear, and you've left very little for other things, you're going to be wasting a lot of time. Yeah, you really need the guidance.
That's great. Great advice. Well, George, thank you so much for coming on the show today and testing everything out and checking out the new space. And
yeah, totally.
It's always so great to see
It's fun to be the guinea pig / tester tech on the first show.
I love it.
Really
it
cool.
makes me feel calm too to have you here.
That's awesome. That's really important to me. I like making people feel calm.
Thank you all of our viewers and listeners at home. So excited about season 3. I already have some amazing guests booked out, and we're still going to be releasing 1 video a week. We're going to be doing longer interviews than season 2, but breaking it into 2 different parts. So that is the game plan. And I'm curious to know what you think and if you like it. I also want to maybe get back to some in-person, or I should say live Instagram sessions and add some other bonuses in for some of the hardcore fans. So shoot me a DM and let me know what you want, what you like, or if you have any ideas. A lot of good fun stuff coming. So
awesome.
Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Bye.